So I'm going to just jump right into this presentation. I'm not going to go. I think that the prior speakers did a pretty good job showing what, talking about the evolution of equity financing, venture, and angel, and other sources. I'm going to focus on a different type of financing that I'm highly specialized in, and what I want to do is first explain to you how I became specialized. So just a quick show of hands again, how many people are developers or run a development company and are interested in kind of learning from somebody who's been in the trenches? So what I want to do is a quick case study and zoom in on a time in my life when in 1998 I was the CEO of Player One, which was a 35-person, 3-team console studio in Santa Monica. We had a very, very talented team of core people that had all worked in Sony PlayStation division in Santa Monica. And we were asked by a publisher that was courting us to come up with a game for the Nintendo 64, and they wanted a kids bowling game. And my partner, George Weissing, catered to their desire and said, yeah, no problem, we'll put together a kids bowling game. And this was in January of '98. And of course, the publisher wanted to have the title ship for Christmas, so that it had to be through lot check at Nintendo by Halloween time or Thanksgiving time. So we had to get moving. So we put our team on it, started developing the game, and it started going through the contract. We had a handshake in late January. The winter months moved along. In California, it's kind of easy to deal with, but we got around March timeframe, and we were still talking about the contract. And we finally, I made a bunch of concessions, which usually a CEO of a developer has to do. So we finally got to the version to sign. It was coming through the fax machine. It was before the internet was really taking off, and the CEO had decided to attach a personal guarantee for me to sign, saying that in the event that we couldn't deliver the bowling game on time through lot check successfully and to their satisfaction, that I have to give up my house. So when you're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week and not seeing your family, it's pretty tough to give that much up. Fortunately, I had met some people at a cocktail party a few months earlier in the end of '97 that were looking to perfect the use of completion guarantees similar to the film industry and apply those to video game projects. And they had asked me what I thought. So I immediately called them up and said, hey, I need to get a guarantee on this game, because we were pretty pregnant. We were 3 months in, and maybe $200,000 we would have lost if we had walked away and not signed the contract. So what we were able to do is put in place a four-party deal where there was the bank. Effectively, what I found out is that the publisher was looking to use my personal guarantee to extend his line of credit with the bank, so they could have 1.2 million, which is worth 1.7 million today, of additional credit. So we put in place a completion guarantee, paid for the premium of that guarantee, which said basically that if we were to be unsuccessful in the delivery, and even guaranteed that Nintendo would accept it from a technical perspective, that the bonding company would reimburse any of the loss that the bank would suffer. So we were able to achieve all the goals, and lo and behold, we were off to the races. And it really was the first. This company had done 2 completion bonds, and unfortunately, the industry has seen some difficult application of completion bonding. I've been lucky enough to be involved with a number of projects that have been successful and used completion bonding successfully. So if we fast forward to today, I took you about halfway through my career where I was running a game developer. Since that time, I've really specialized in alternative financing methods and applying those. And one of the things I was able to do is work with another completion bond company called Film Finances, which is one of the main groups that bonds film and television projects worldwide, and put in place a number of structured finance deals. And that's in addition to today, I also act as an advisor. I invest as an angel. I invest a combination of cash and services, and act as either business development or corporate development or mentoring of teams, in addition to doing more boutique investment banking work as well in the industry, working for investors, et cetera. But I thought it would be informative to show you what it was that gave me my crash course in structured finance. So what I would like to do now is focus in on a couple of very successful projects where I acted as the risk manager on behalf of the completion bonding company later on in my career, and explain how beneficial these were to the developers. I mean, Rocksteady was in 2005 spinning out of Argonaut Studios, and was looking to set up their studio very quickly and enter into a deal with a relatively thinly funded publisher at the time, IDOS, who did not want to take the risk on an unproven studio. And so what we were able to do is provide an alternative to venture capital by working with the bank, providing a guarantee for the development risk and expertise for the development risk, and allowed for IDOS to simply guarantee the receipt of the final product. So these types of deals act like traditional types of publishing deals, with the exception that you've got multiple parties. So that worked pretty well at a time when there were publishers who were creditworthy enough to provide guarantees that banks would accept, and at a time when there was very clear demarcation of the roles between publishing and development. Those days kind of disappeared first as the financial markets crashed and banking generally dried up. It became very difficult for the entertainment industries as a whole to continue to have debt financing. And the publishers themselves started going through major changes. And I think at the same time as the financial crisis occurred, the beginning of the digital distribution methods and pathways began really opening up for the game industry. So this type of financing really didn't work. I'm convinced now that we're entering a time when it really can work. I mean, as I've explained, conditions change pretty radically, but we're looking at now is game development, which is essentially much closer to its final user and much closer to revenue sources that have far less intermediaries in the chain. If in order to step outside of more of a traditional publishing framework, developers have a huge opportunity to look at bringing more sensible leverage and debt. I think that the huge opportunity really is that digital product is essentially of much higher value. The intellectual property rights are of much higher value because of a relatively shorter time to market, the fact that you use iterative methods and bring a minimum viable product to market, and again, that the economics are incrementally better than the packaged goods traditional gaming industry. So I think we're seeing a new era dawning, and what I want to do with the rest of the presentation here is give you my view on the way that there is segmentation. I'm specifically ignoring the notion that angel investment is a very good way to start up a studio. Once you're started up and you have a prototype and then you're moving it towards the market, either you're an experienced developer or you're a first-time developer, you can still look at methods that will allow you to have a certain amount of leverage. So basically, I think we have to recognize that publishing is essentially changed. And we've talked a bit about the value chain in here in the earlier sessions. The value chain is really is something you have to look at and compartmentalize and really see that there's an opportunity to split it apart and from a development standpoint, focus on ways of bringing in sensible structured finance or leverage. So I think two trends are really key right now. One is that there's a number of venture-backed publishers that are setting up shop, focusing on the digital marketplace and focusing on an area of the market I think is very promising, which are more premium or higher quality products. And then there are the beginnings of more mezzanine style venture debt or funds that actually lend rather than look for equity stakes. And you're seeing that on a regional level, similar to what Game On is a product of regional public funding. But there's many of the regions that are looking to favor game development and digital media development will focus on providing convertible notes and other types of lending. Then there's the very exciting area of private funds. So what I want to do is kind of make a demarcation. Up at the top, you could insert the other publishers who are the legacy traditional publishers who now have vibrant digital businesses such as Electronic Arts or Atari. But I focused on the ones that I think are doing a great job as new types of publishers that are coming on the scenes, focusing specifically on digital products, and are taking down substantial amounts of venture money at a high valuation. Their challenge is to build a portfolio extremely quickly, and in doing so, they will discuss with third-party developers the notion that they would like to partner with them and that they can provide better terms. But at the end of the day, they have some very significant requirements to grow quickly and to really own the intellectual property that they're investing in. And then you have other players such as Amazon who are coming onto the scene. So if you're looking to get a higher budget project funded, that's one place you can look. And the other place you can look, again, as I explained, there's multiple regional groups that I think do a great job, and this panel is not, or this session is not about those types of funds. They play an extremely important role. I think there's a few developments, such as Kabam's announcement last year that they've set up a fund to bring Asian titles to the West. That's remarkable in that it is focusing on rev share deals with those developers, so they're not looking to acquire the IP, they're just looking to acquire distribution rights. But the fund I think that is the most interesting right now is the group out of Finland called Vision Plus. And I'll go into a little bit more detail as to why I think Vision Plus is really the future for financing. But I'll stop there by saying that we've seen different types of funding and structured and layered funding work extremely well in the film and television industries for years. And I think now that we have patterns of revenue share, or opportunities for revenue share, and a pattern for digital revenue going forward in the video game industry that's clearly announced itself, I think we really are at a new era for different types of financing. So obviously if anybody wants to have copies of this, they can, but I'll just go really quickly through the lexicon of the different types of considerations that you should make when you're looking to fund your title. I think digital publishers, they will come to you and say to a third-party developer that has a great original IP that they want to partner with you. I think that it's important to realize that they can only go so far in their partnership. If they're going to achieve their corporate goals, their corporate growth and valuation expectations, they're going to have a pretty long-term ownership stake in the intellectual properties that they back. Whereas with independent project finance, you basically are partnering. You're looking to gain revenue share. These types of funds may take a stake in the intellectual property during the exploitation phase of the game, but more often than not, they'll be able to allow a game developer to hold the underlying IP and over the long term grow that IP or grow the IP into a franchise. I think that you, in terms of the way that the funds deploy, a publisher inherently is looking to curate. And I because I'm watching these things pretty closely, I think each time you see a new publisher come on the scene, you're not seeing them move extremely quickly to build their portfolio because they're looking to make sure that they have a rational portfolio, one that is not going to cannibalize across products. They typically will be focused on one type of genre or business model, and they're not going to go extremely quickly. So if you're looking to work with them, you have to expect that they'll move slowly. They'll want to see, similar to venture capital, they'll want to see progress and advancement. Whereas a portfolio fund that's lending you money is going to want to have as many titles in the portfolio as possible. It doesn't mean that they'll necessarily skimp on due diligence, but there will be a drive to actually get something done. I think in terms of level of publishing risk, again, size of portfolio can make a huge difference. With a focus on a financial portfolio, you've got pooled risk. In terms of in terms of digital publishing, especially startup publishers, even with the most experienced teams, there's still a risk of failure that you have to assume if you're an independent developer. I think in terms of marketing strategy, this is where things start to get really interesting. With you see that at this show, the ecosystem is starting to become extremely mature now, and developers have to be very serious about what publishing really means. I mean, I hear a lot of developers that are very specialized in what they do creatively and how they want to engage with their players and their users. And oftentimes they say they have a kind of thought process that they're going through that says, well, I need an expert publisher to help me get to market. And in reality, they should be thinking about ways of building those core competencies themselves over time by really understanding how the entire ecosystem has changed and the fact that there are available partnerships that can be made to gain those very valuable publishing skill sets. So I think that those are the types of advantages that you really see with looking at bringing in a leveraged approach or structured finance approach. So I think since we got off to a slow start, I'm ready to answer any questions.
First of all, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, you know what? Let me go through the Vision Plus.
Yeah, exactly.
Vision Plus. So this is a quick case study on what this team has put in place. They started off as a group called Mediatronic 4 years ago, with a very small portfolio. I think they were, if correct, I may be off a little bit, but they were around 5 million euros. In 2012, they closed a first larger round as Vision Plus, and then last year they closed their second round. So they have a full fund size of 50 million. Of that 50 million, they've deployed that across something like 40 plus projects, and 35% of those are game projects. They have quite a bit of investment going into internet services and top-level domains, and then they have about 20% going into apps and non-game. But their entire model is recognizing that a development company comes to them with a proposition to create a digital product. They place money as debt, as payment in kind, 0% interest loans plus a revenue share. Their model is designed to work primarily with products that are close to commercialization or at least somewhere between 0 and 9 months between going to market. Funds can be used to develop the product and market the product. And they can work with other types of funding. I mean, clearly it can work extremely well with seed funding or equity-based funding as a complement. And then they've made a couple of investments without having a vocation of being a publisher. They have made some ecosystem investments, notably in China and in the area of merchandising to monetize in games that can be beneficial to some of the product-based investments that they make. So I really think that what the founders of Vision Plus have done is extremely important for the industry, and I very much hope that this becomes a model for the future.
Mark, can I ask you something? Sorry I interrupt you, but
fire away.
I know Vision Plus, but let's recap a bit. So basically they invest in IP, right? So am I right?
No, they don't. I mean, they create a project company.
Yeah.
They lend that project company money. During the investment and divestment phase, when they are sharing revenue,
yeah,
the intellectual property will be encumbered, but it'll still be owned by the developer. And in fact, the special purpose company in their model is owned by the developer.
Okay, and the rev share is lifetime?
The rev share can be limited. I think that it's not lifetime, it's a set period of time. Okay. So they define a life cycle for each product that they get involved in.
And is that for them interesting to look at certain franchise? I mean,
well, I mean, this allows any game developer to create a franchise and receive sensible debt funding, essentially, and revenue share. So if you can make this work with the other participants in the revenue waterfall, you're going to do much better than if you were going with a worldwide publishing deal.
And other VCs feel comfortable with this later stage to get in?
VCs are very comfortable with this. I mean, venture debt has been a key component, especially in the last 10 years, of technology investing, where you'll have certain venture capitals that are very specialized in the equity side, and then others that will follow equity in with different types of convertible financing products and payment in kind interest, so high interest rate.
Cool. Anyone questions? Fire at will.
Fire away.
Mark, I've got a question. It's over here. You talk about rev share. Is that like as opposed to like an equity stake in the company? Is that a distinction?
That's exactly right. And
what would be a typical revenue share?
Well, it's to be negotiated, obviously. But I mean, if you imagine that the investor is probably going to want at least 50-50 after costs are recovered, and after they get a repayment of payment in kind on their loan lending. So this type of investment views the primary recovery as a hurdle rate, payment in kind, say 20% on. So if they lend 100, they're looking to make 120 back, and an ongoing revenue share. That ongoing revenue share could be anywhere from 10 to 50%, depending on how much risk they took or how good you are, how good your lawyer is. I think the important thing is bringing leverage into the picture. The game industry has been just traditionally very staid in its ways, and looking at funding from publishers fund from reserves. That's their vocation, and there's never been a lot of financial sophistication in game publishing, and we've kind of inherited that a little bit. Fortunately, though, it's the Wild West with new revenue models, and it's very easy to kind of reset, I think, going forward.
One more question, last one.
Please, what do you think about the convergence between movies industries and gaming industries, and how to...
Transmedia, you mean? Building a game and a film at the same time?
This one pet. The other is more interactive content for TV or multiple platforms. Because what we see today in TV is the same content with a digital equipment. But I think there are many opportunities to mix the interaction and the experiences of games with the content in TV. I am very interested in this.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
so I've spent 20 years in the industry and been very involved in many transmedia or license deals back and forth. And maybe I'm jaded, but I believe that there's an interactive proposition for a player, and then there's storytelling. Many games have storytelling components, and many genres of games have storytelling components that are very important, but they don't always lend themselves to linear media. So I think if anytime you're trying to force it, it never works. That's my general rule. And if the other thing is, if anytime you try to time a media launch, so tentpole film, big game, you're looking at potential problems. It's just very hard to align all the various interests. That said, I think we're at Rovio has shown how you can create an entertainment franchise out of a relatively simplistic game, because you've delivered so much joy that why not make a theme park out of it? So I think if you're always looking at the filmed entertainment marketplace and how you can make games with film, that's usually pretty painful. Just on that note, I think one of the best examples is Rocksteady Studio having created Batman out of a comic license that they weren't even really supposed to have. It was completely under the radar for years, and that there wasn't any film launch that was going on with the original Batman game that they created. When eventually they lined up the film launches with the game launch, and in fact that game has actually driven the Batman franchise overall. But those things are kind of outliers. It's the most film and game tie-ins they factually have not performed as well as original properties.
Thank you, Mark. I have to cut you off, otherwise you keep
All
on
right, well,
talking.
thank you very much. Appreciate it, everybody.